Hi guys, do you love Middle Eastern fragrances like myself and you're located in the UK and you are looking for a legitimate plug? Well, I have one for you. Visit www.tawakalperfumes.co.uk, stockist of Fragrance World, Maison Alhambra, Astaf, Latafa, Al Haramain, Rasasi, Ajmal, Arabiette, FA Paris. All these fragrances you can see here, you can get at Tawakal Perfumes and more. They also have little known brands like LXR and their own exclusive Tawakal line. So if you are on the hunt, those houses that are hard to find and the older lines from Latafa, you can certainly get them from tawakalperfumes.co.uk. All you have to do at checkout for a little extra is to add the reference CeeChronicles. Happy shopping. Hi guys, CeeChronicles here. Welcome and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I post fragrance related content and would very much appreciate it if you did consider subscribing. That is, if you're not subscribed. To those who are already subscribed, thank you so much for returning and supporting this channel. I am going to give you layering combinations or layering tips rather. And this was a request of Tamika Young. She reached out to me via Instagram and she said, could you do a video on how to layer very difficult DNAs? And then she added another message saying, I've been having a problem with my opulent oud. However, I have tried it with my pink sugar and it has worked, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to be showing you like this one goes with this one per se, like in that format. I'm going to be giving you advice as to the power of the use of a nose of vanilla, gourmands, patchouli, and some oils to give a twist to some of these, DNAs. I'm not going to center just on difficult DNAs. I'm going to obviously give you suggestions of how to go about it. Now, number one, guys, is going to be pairing fragrances that have the same theme or are built around the same style of juice, right? These are not in any way, shape, or form light fragrances to my nose. They will come across as very rich. They're built on a lot of ingredients. Now, why do I have all the three? I have all the three as just to clue you up that you could layer these fragrances together, not all at the same time. You could layer Oud Al Zafran Oud 24 hours with your Club de Nuit women or with the Latafa Amethyst. They're going to vibe the same. However, this type of layering does not really change the direction of your fragrance that much. It just gives it a little twist where it then doesn't become an obvious, say an obvious Oud 24 hours or an obvious Club de Nuit or an obvious Amethyst. It just comes across as a fragrance that smells different, but it's going to maintain its richness. So that is clue number one. Now, I have about 12 or 13 points to give to you here, and like I said, I'm going to be giving you examples because much as I would want to come and say this one works with that one, maybe you won't have it. So I'm going to give you examples. If by coincidence you do actually have the fragrance that I'm talking about, then that's just going to be the cherry on top. Somebody came in my comment section when I did a review of Casella Noir from the House of Pandora, and they were saying, I would love to know if you know of another Chanel Coco Noir DNA that is not this one, because the Pandoras to me just don't last. Now, if you have that kind of a problem with a certain DNA that you feel doesn't last, you could use a patchouli forward style of fragrance. This is from Paris Corner. It's patchouli number 7. It doesn't have to be this one. Why I singled out this one is it's distinct in the patchouli. Let me give you a quick example. I could have used Casablanca. Casablanca has a lot of patchouli in it, but it does have a caramel that stands up enough to possibly disturb this DNA. So if I wanted to anchor my Casella Noir, I would probably use this patchouli just to make sure that this patchouli forward fragrance is going to tie that DNA that this one has and make it have a staying power. Try it with a patchouli forward fragrance, but just make sure that the patchouli forward fragrance is something like this, where it's not going to change the theme of the fragrance, but rather give it longevity. Another trick that you can use with patchouli forward fragrances, which is going to be point number 3, is in fragrances like this. If you find Nebraska slap in the face gourmand that is just too much of a thickened cacao and no twists and turns, patchouli again is going to revive this fragrance and give it somewhat of a more prominent woody direction. I'm not saying it doesn't have woods or spices or anything like that, but this is going to spice it up. I've tried this combo. It works very well, for me. So it is another combination that you could try. Another fragrance that you could use, say for instance you don't have patchouli number 7 from the House of Paris Corner, is maybe December Vanilla, because this is vanilla and patchouli, and it is a patchouli that is quite prominent there, not as distinct or as standalone as that, but because it's got that mix of the vanilla in it, it will work to anchor this fragrance. You're going to still remain with a gourmand forward fragrance because the vanilla in this as well is doing a little too much, but there's going to be a twist to a combination like this. So certainly one that I would suggest to play around with. Say for instance you're having a tough time with your Nebras and you happen to have this fragrance. The two are going to create some magic. Another layering combination that I have as a suggestion for you guys, say for instance you have a DNA centered on that Delina DNA, Delina exclusive. So it could be Shalina from Fragrance World, it could be Rosa one, it could be this one, Club de Nuit Imperial. All those three fragrances are very prominent in that Delina centered DNA. Whether you want to call them exclusive or the actual OG Delina is entirely up to you. Now, if you find this fragrance or the Delina doing the most, try and find yourself a lighter, more sparkly version of a fragrance that's themed almost in the same way. I'm not saying Bayan Al Asra is the same as Delina, but I'm just saying these two guys are definitely going to work well together, because the sparkly, crisp, effervescent nature of this one is going to tone down that pushy feel that you get in your Delina or your Delina exclusive, making it a combination that's not going to change direction that much. Because remember I said this one is supposed to have an almondy nutty twist, but I don't get a distinct nuttiness in here. So I'm not proposing this combination so that you will be able to get like a nutty twist to Delina. I am just saying it's going to keep with that rosy theme, but it's going to be more crispier, a little bit more cleaner and more enjoyable. Okay, so this combination is going to work together, and you don't have to have these actual combinations. Remember, say for instance you have that Rose Privé from Astaf, that's probably going to do as well. In as much as that one vibes a lot like the Delina exclusive, it's not as pushy as the Delina exclusive. So that is another tip there when it comes to layering. Another layering combination you can try is taking fragrances that have a prominent note in common and pairing them together. This December Rose has blueberry. This is blueberry musk. This Fenty is also built around blueberry. You can use these fragrances on top of each other. They're not going to change direction that much, but say for instance you used this blueberry musk and this one, you are most likely going to get a fragrance that is longer lasting. Okay, in this has got a lasting power on its own, but this is probably going to anchor that. But having said that, again, this is a musk, so it's also going to add a little bit more longevity in this Fenty, in as much as the Fenty itself has got the lasting power. Now, to bring it closer to home, I'm going to bring back the December, because this one is a musk, this blueberry musk. It then gives a little bit of longevity to December. Remember, they have that blueberry note in common. They may not smell 100 the same, but it is the blueberry note that's doing the most in both of these fragrances. So if you're having lasting power issues with this one, you can use these two together and you will somewhat have a fragrance with an extension of an extra 2 hours to what you were already having. So that's another pairing combo that I can suggest for you. And then remember, at the beginning of the video I did talk about vanillas and the power of oils and gourmands and stuff, right? I've got this Kadlaj, which I have been talking about this month, and was just as well that Kadlaj themselves sent me this popular oil of theirs. So I'm having a tough time with this fragrance. I haven't really experimented with layering it with the oil that much, but when I did this morning, it did pacify this one a little bit, because this one kind of strays. It is doing a little bit too much there. It is very much on the aromatic side, which can be off-putting. So I found that pairing these two actually make this sweetened fruity oil neutralize this one a little bit, but you have to go easy on the sprays when it comes to this one, and of course you have to use the oil as a base. So don't go for 10 sprays and then use a little bit of the oil. The oil is still going to be overpowered, because this fragrance is a bit too much, guys, but it is also one good layering combination. I think maybe that's why this Kadlaj oil is popular, because I don't think it's going to end there. I think it's going to layer a lot of fragrances perfectly together. And if you cannot get the colors you want. It's not set in stone, guys. Any oil is going to do, as long as it's an oil that's not going to change the direction of your fragrance. Why I am saying change the direction is this oil is centered on a Middle Eastern dose of spices in it. So if you're to use this oil, say for instance, with Fleur Oud, another fragrance that I feel may do with a little bit of some layering there because it's quite sharp, this might take over. So you still want to stick to an oil that's going to have a fair share of sweetness, right? Like these two are probably going to go hand in hand because this one is all about the sweetness. It's not trying to, it doesn't have a woody thing piercing there that is most likely going to take over. So it's going to tame the sharpness of this fragrance, right? Remember, these are guidelines. Just in case you don't have any of these fragrances, you can look within your collection and see what combinations would work best with what I have been talking about. And then we have sticky sweet fragrances. This one being an example, Forbidden Sugar from the House of Paris Corner. When I did a full review of this fragrance, I did tell you guys that this was like super juvenile sweet vibes in the same way as a Frank Boxley's Sugar. So the name Sugar here, they're not joking about it. Sweet is all you're gonna get. Now, if this is off-putting for you, you could try it with a crisp, fresh, clean floral like this. This is like an out of the shower style fragrance. But remember, if you're trying to do away with a certain ingredient that's doing the most, like in this case, it's the sugar that we're trying to tone down on, then you go lower on the sprays here and more on the sprays there, right? But this is not so overpowering to an extent that the same precaution I asked you to do here is what I'm saying here. You could go 50-50, it might work. But I'm just saying these two are probably going to work perfectly together, especially if you're after neutralizing the sweetness that you get in sweet fragrances. Look for a freshie within your collection. This one is not citrusy in its freshness. It's just clear freshness, like aquatic freshness. It's going to dilute the sweetness that you get from a fragrance like this. Let me talk about the power of a fragrance like Soft, which vibes in the same way as Pink Sugar, but I gave you Soft from the House of Al Rehab because this one's more affordable. These two vibe in the same way. It's just that this one is heightened when it comes to the citruses as opposed to this one, but it's basically cotton candy in a bottle. You will be amazed what this cotton candy can do to tame wild DNAs like this. If you have Oud Mood, you will know that it's either you love it or you can't stand it. And it's one of those fragrances that will simply rubbish everybody's fragrance. So if you work with a lot of people or in a shared office, this is not the sort of fragrance I'm going to say go for. This fragrance, you can literally smell somebody when they are like maybe meters and meters away from you. So this is a strong DNA, especially if you got the ones that were created before Latafa was as famous as it is now. You know, it was also one of the fragrances that I featured in my very early videos. And I can tell you, this only gets better with time. Try to mix it with a softie like this. This is candy forward, but it somehow pacifies, you know, that harshness that you get from this. I'm not gonna come here and lie and say you're gonna lose the oud. This is centered on the oud, so the oud is gonna stay there, but there's going to be a little bit of a sweetened, wrap up of the fragrance. And especially if you go lower on this and more on this, it's gonna work magic. Another combination that can obviously work with this Soft is going to be the Citron Vanille. Remember I told you that this Citron Vanille is giving me like a burnt toasty vanilla and less of the citruses and making it so manly man and dark and all that. This can somewhat, you know, tame this one to make it such that you will at least get your money's worth by using it instead of disposing it. So this is a cheapie. You're gonna spend maybe $2-3 on this fragrance, but it does wonders, you know, when it comes to layering fragrances. And I've noticed that not only just the Soft, I mean, when it comes to Rehab, they have a host of oils, and no, I'm not being sponsored. I'm just cluing you up here. They have a host of oils that you could, you know, purchase there to, if you're looking for cheap oils, right? Rather, because obviously these two are not as affordable as the Al Rehab. So I'm just cluing you up here in case you're looking for, you know, affordable oils that you can be playing around with your, with your fragrances that you find a little bit difficult to carry. Here's another combination. This is also a Choco Musk. I cannot state how much this is a must in anyone's collection. This is going to add, of course, that cacao feel to this fragrance, making that vanilla shine a little bit more than it is now. The vanilla is there in this, but it's not as bright as I would love it to be. So this combination is most likely going to work if you are going to try it. Another one that is a no-brainer is going to be obviously that Kayali Vanilla 28. But why I don't have it here is more often than not, when I bring it here, a lot of you guys complain about the price of that fragrance, and you are right. The Kayalis are very expensive. Now, talk of adding a gourmand twist to a fragrance. This is Le Fade's Intoxicate, built around that angel share DNA. It has more of that apple pie feel than it does the spices. But if you want to add, a touch of more evident gourmandness to this fragrance, you could pair it with Caramel Cascade. These two work like mac and cheese. This Caramel Cascade has got a harsh opening, but that harsh opening, remember, is temporary. What you're going to be left with is mostly that yummy caramel. And imagine adding that yummy caramel to this spicy tone of a fragrance. So if you feel this one doesn't project, it doesn't do much, then layer it with this, because yes, it does feel like a fragrance that needs help. And I'm not stereotyping the Le Fade one. I'm just saying the angel share DNA as a whole. So whether you have that cocktail intense from Fragrance World, whether you have the real angel share, whether you have Fire Your Desire from Paris Corner, just try layering it with this Caramel Cascade, and then you're gonna thank me later, because this may be a tough one on its own, but it works perfectly with other fragrances, right? I'm about to close this video, but I'm just going to give you maybe 2 more combinations, maybe 3. I don't know. I've lost count. Okay. If you have a flimsy citrus, right? So you have a flimsy citrus like this. It gives you that orange, but you wish the orange could last longer. Get yourself a bare musk like this musk. Not particularly this one. It could be any musk, but make sure it's a bare musk. By bare musk, I mean a musk that comes across as soapy, powdery, outright baby powder type of musk. This musk will work as a fixative to these citruses, because citruses are volatile, as an ingredient. Citruses don't hold anyway, so they often need help. So you could try, maybe say, if you love this DNA so much, try pairing it with a musk for longevity, and you're gonna thank me later. The last pair, guys, is going to be again something like this. Okay, now this is Imperial Arabia from the House of Swiss Arabian, and this is a fragrance built around sweet sticky fruits, but it has a decent dose of Middle Eastern spices. So it does dry down into like a Middle Eastern spicy type of vibe thing that I get in here. I'm not saying it's the same fragrance, but I'm saying, remember when I said you couldn't layer this one with a flimsy fragrance? I was saying this one would take over. Now this is not as intense as the oil, so there is a likelihood that if you layer it with a freshie like this, it's probably going to relent there in its Middle Eastern spiciness. So if you find yourself with a DNA like this that you find a little bit tricky there, or maybe pushy, or maybe too spicy for you, try layering it with a freshie, and then let me know how it turns out. I wouldn't particularly, come and recommend, say, this type of freshie, because this one, remember, I did tell you that in as much as it does have a fresh appeal to it, is quite spicy as well and aromatic, so the two would clash. So you want to go for a clean freshie when it comes to a DNA like this. So that's it, guys. Those are some of the tips that I can say when it comes to layering. Remember that I did say don't sleep on Caramel Cascade, or if you're one of those people that did buy Caramel Cascade and you're struggling with it, just try using it to layer certain fragrances. It does throw an umbrella gourmand thing to any fragrance that I have tried with it so far. I wouldn't particularly, say try it with this, because I think this would just be a gourmand mess, but try it with other DNAs. You could even try it with this citron vanilla. It's most likely going to work. Just puts that lactonic feel around a fragrance. It does end up being about it, and having that other fragrance that you would have used to layer it with as a backdrop of it, making it more enjoyable. CeeChronicles is my name. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's meet in the comment section where we're going to discuss more about fragrances. Let me know your layering combinations and what suggestions you want to drop out there that have worked for you. Remember to turn on post notifications, guys. That way you get to be notified anytime I upload a video. Like and share this one, and remember that smelling good is a form of good manners. Cheers.